The protests over construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline have, as I'm sure you know by now, gone on for months and months and months. We've been covering it for what feels like the entirety of my life. I think the country is aware of it, but the country's president is not. Donald Trump apparently doesn't know that this is a big deal, as you're going to find out in this video clip.
I approved 2 pipelines that were stuck in limbo forever. I don't even think it was controversial. You know, I approved them. I haven't had one call from anybody saying, oh, that was a terrible thing you did. I haven't had one call. You know, usually if I do something, it's like bedlam, right? I haven't had one call from anybody. And, you know, and then, as you know, I did the Dakota pipeline, and nobody called up to complain because it was unfair. Years of getting approvals, nobody showed up to fight it. This company spends tremendous hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and then all of a sudden people show up to fight it. It's not fair to our companies, and I think everyone's going to be happy in the end, okay?
You think everybody? I don't think everybody's going to be happy.
Okay.
It's a pretty disingenuous description of the process, by the way. What were you going to say, Anna?
I think there are 2 possibilities behind his comments there, okay? Possibility number 1 is that he's just lying, and he knows that it's been controversial, and he knows that something that he himself has a vested interest in led to huge protests where very peaceful protesters, and the videos will prove it, were fired with rubber bullets and water cannons and were treated so incredibly poorly by officials on the scene. So my guess is there's a possibility that he does know what was going on, but he's pretending like it's no big deal, maybe in an effort to troll the people who are concerned about their drinking water and sacred burial lands.
Yeah.
The other possibility is that, look, it is true that the mainstream media didn't make a big deal about DAPL. There were a lot of independent media sources that, including our show, that did extensive coverage on it, that sent reporters there. And who knows, maybe he only pays attention to what goes on in cable news, and maybe he only watches Morning Joe and talks to Joe Scarborough. So maybe he really doesn't know how big of a deal it is. But those are the 2 possibilities, and I'm not really sure which one is true.
Well, if you look at the scope that he put it in, he goes, it was very unfair to the business people. He put hundreds of $millions of into the system, and he made sure that he was going to make billions of dollars through the pipeline. And then once that didn't happen, he said it's unfair to them. He goes, I haven't got calls from people that are complaining about the detrimental sides of this. He only listens to people that he respects or that he thinks deserve his ear.
That's right.
Which are the billionaires that are building the pipelines, or the business people that he surrounds himself with, or the people that will say yes to him. So those are the people he surrounds himself with. There's plenty of people calling. It's just those people don't matter.
Yeah.
No one's going to be hurt by this because those are nobodies.
Well, yeah, first of all, he says, I haven't received any calls. Okay, let's say hypothetically you wanted to call Trump right now. Okay, try. What number are you dialing to call Donald Trump? Now, you can't call him. You could theoretically call the White House under prior presidents. They did have a call-in number. That was shut down when Trump became president. And so you literally can't get that call. So maybe he doesn't know that. Maybe Anna's right, and he doesn't know how much opposition there is. I don't know. But it was a very disingenuous description of the process. I mean, if you were to hear him say that there, you would have no idea that water was even a concern here, that there was threat to water supplies. It's just the unfair thing about the money, and we can't get the money. You'd have no idea that he had previously invested in Energy Transfer Partners, the company building the pipeline. You'd have no clue. You'd have no clue, as Anna pointed out, of the mistreatment of the protesters. There's another thing we want to tie into this, though, that was suggested by JR in the production meeting, and I do find it to be very interesting. You obviously have a lot of protest against DAPL. That's clear. We know that exists. There was protests in D.C. today, okay? Trump can look outside of his window rather than at a TV screen, and he will see it, and he will know. But either he's not aware of that because he very closely filters the information that reaches him, or he doesn't want you to know about it. And that is a philosophy that exists throughout his administration, and certainly his representatives in the media, like Kellyanne Conway, who was asked about activists, like regular people, their outreach to try to influence what the White House does. She said this earlier this week. She shrugged off the concerns from thousands of people jamming phone lines critical of Trump's cabinet nominees. We know in particular that Betsy DeVos generated a lot of calls. Apparently, there were 1.5 million calls per day, I believe, going in.
Wow.
She says she's worried about her own RPI, or real person impact meter, which I found in my convenient Webster's Dictionary of Bullshit. You can get one at Barnes & Noble. She basically said, this is from the Republican Senator's communication director who was at that meeting, said that she basically said the people were jamming up the phones and they don't matter to this White House, that this administration just cares about what matters to real people. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
That means that if you have any grievance with this administration, you are not considered a real person.
Absolutely.
It means that your voice will not be heard and you will not be represented in this representative democracy.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
If you like the Young Turks, you'll love Old School. That's a show we have just for members. Wild, fun, no holds barred. Check it out at tytnetwork.com/join.